Okay, it's almost 5:30 on the first day of March, 2024, and I was greeted by a notice that something called AvanQuest, which is identified on the web as PUP software, malware, infected the older of my two computers about a year ago, and since then has taken unnoticed random small amounts that add up to 15 incidents of theft, and totaling about $250. And I looked into it, and there's no way I can recover that. The best I could do was stop the auto pay routine that was doing that. So that was a great thing to wake up to that. Quite a bit taken off the top, money's in my account today. But that kind of thing happens to me all the time. I'm still sick. I've been sick for the last 2 days. I thought it was only something, a GI tract business. I've been vomiting and had severe diarrhea all day yesterday. I mean, just one and then the other and then again all day. And I woke up a few minutes ago and tried to get going, and I found myself having other symptoms of some sort of infection. Some sort of infection that is not just a GI. I think it's multiple infections, and so I'll mention that. And basically, I just have to wait till it takes care of itself. I don't expect anything palliative or anything else here. It's a very political environment here. It is hostile, and that's one reason I am going ahead and recording this before the politics get started. They last from about 6:30 or 7 until about 8:30 at night every day, all the same. I don't guess I'll be able to do very much, but I had thought earlier that I might say something or find something about what is morphing in the news. There are a lot of people being accused of everything. I guess the big deal is everybody's following the stuff that Trump is going through, and then to an extent I guess the whole Biden family is going through. And what I've noticed is while there's still some serious charges that haven't been dismissed or haven't resulted in what people want, a secondary layer of going on, having to do with people whose security clearances are not even talked about. I'll put it that way. Not even talked about, and they probably won't be. But there is a re-legitimization of some of the agonies of adversity, slings and arrows of outrageous fortune. It says, well, now if we can't nail people, in terms of crime, then we can, before this is through, we can have some sort of meritorious stress test that has reached enormous proportions. People are under pressure to crack, or whatever you want to say, and call on people to pay attention to things that are not supposed to justify or excuse anything, both which figure into a lot of things. A classic example, and I picked this for several reasons, maybe you can guess, now that things are on the mend in some areas, if not all. A classic example was when people were casting about for campaign issues when Kennedy was running for the White House. People came up with the idea of the missile gap. And only, maybe a decade later did people candidly say, well, there was no missile gap, in the sense that we were defenseless or something, and all of that, for those who are concerned about the advantages that disclosed armaments can offer, saber rattling and all. Well, the thing is, Eisenhower simply was not in a position to do any saber rattling to discount the charges made by Kennedy. Kennedy was very, what do you want to say, realistic or opportunistic about being able, to say that there was a missile gap, knowing that Eisenhower was in no position to spill the beans about how it was that that didn't mean what Kennedy was suggesting, namely that the country was vulnerable to some new extent because of what other sovereign powers had put together. And now we have not a missile gap, that people know about, and I'm talking about lots of people with clearances that they don't, are not at issue. But others, within that same rather large group, know that they can tempt people, to disclose what they know, to get out of a bind that they're in, that they find agonizing and difficult and everlasting. And through it all this stuff, not anybody in the Trump team and not anybody in the Biden team has spilt any beans by way of explaining things that others have explained in public as the basis for all manner of retribution or whatever. There's something similar, not to that extent by any means. There's something similar to, the banking titans undergoing an unannounced yet very thorough stress test, on any given day, sort of like a fire drill, a stress test to see what would happen if one or another unexpected event happened. Would there be a cascade of terrible proportions? And of course, what that has meant is banks have to have a department, usually a separate department that is actually spread out, into various departments who look into the what if, what would happen. And so a lot of people are concerned with being ready, just in case some inspector flips a switch and says, this is it. You never know whether it's real or fake, but it's just the same, And it's nice to know that, nowadays, most banks, can meet horrendous stress tests, even though they don't talk about some of them. They talk about the ones that are milquetoast. Well, we have that going on now because security clearances have been, in my opinion, squandered. And how to deal with that, of course, it's just a matter of working it out. Recently, a pawn, but someone who has been told that he's brilliant, told me rather than to meet certain standards, we can work it out. But he's no Beatle. And I know what would happen if pressure were brought to bear correctly on all of that. But in the meantime, there are others who don't exclaim that. They bear up under the pressure, you might say. I'm reminded of how enthusiastic the royal family was in London when I happened to comment on MI5 and Edward in the Caribbean for a while. I found that to be very interesting, and I'm glad to say that we don't have a world war going on now, but there are horrific things going on, and people know about them. And right now, some people whose motivation, I think, is not very well established, except as gadflies with, shall I say, access to stuff, who try to justify what they're doing because they have so far failed at other pursuits. Now they have morphed into a role that they say, oh, look at us, we're doing stress tests, everybody everywhere, and I feel like, yeah, right. Well, maybe they'll catch some of the rewards of that fairly soon, but it's very complicated. And I would just simply say, I compliment the Trump people and the Biden people, those who have, not resorted to privileged information to explain things that others have interpreted very poorly, but somehow effectively, that thing I always talk about, Alexander Pope said, that knowledge is a dangerous thing. Drink deep or not at all, So, but that doesn't mean that, as this agony continues, for example, as we approach November, that doesn't mean that people won't break, is it? Maybe I should try to look up some movie, about interrogations or, well, that's not really the way it is, like rubber hoses and all that. It's not that. It's a much more complicated thing, and but what would happen if she said, well, dadgummit, I'm just going to go ahead and say this or that, Of course, some of them are smart enough to know that if they follow their own thinking that way, they know that that gets more and more complicated, not less complicated. And so only duress would make a person spill the beans, and you know, despite what a lot of people think, there are a lot of people who do not spill the beans unless really there's a reason. For example, we've had some heroes. You know, some people still hate Snowden. You know, he left. He lives in Russia now after exposing what was going on in the name of a, you know, Big Brother, you know, surveillance and so on. There are things like that. And some people think, well, my job is to make some people crack and tell all or tell what they know, whether it's a lot or a little, to save themselves a lot of trouble that is accumulating. But so far that just hadn't worked, and there are a lot of reasons for that. There are a lot of reasons why it doesn't work. But you know, I don't know of any reports that call into question whether or not some people know as much as the Kennedy team knew about what Eisenhower couldn't talk about. You know, I don't know if anybody has, you know, that kind of perspective, you know, in terms of stress tests, you know. It's a default value right now. It's not really, they weren't chartered to go after anybody in particular. Not just Biden people and Trump people, but some others. They weren't chartered to go out and, you know, try to get people to break or something. But they found themselves, you know, needing to do that, or they would, you know, be up a creek without a paddle. Their paddle, you know, to keep moving, whether toward a dead end or toward the open waters, their paddle is what they know that other people know, and that other people know that they know. And that's very maddening indeed. And you can tell, I mean, you know, well, I don't know that everybody can tell, but some people can tell, you know. And then too, there have been people talking now about things beyond nuclear issues, you know. I read some stuff the other day that was sensationalizing, you know, that things have moved beyond that without getting in particulars. It had to do with North Korea and the arms race that Iran and North Korea have, selling what they make, and the fact that they know that that won't last long, and so it's silly business and they might as well do it. And then stay tuned, because soon there's going to be, you know, better understanding. Well, I really wonder, you know, because mostly people have already talked about much about what might be true without really knowing how thoroughgoing people have looked into the possibilities. And, you know, looking into the possibilities is an understatement. Meanwhile, I don't know that anybody's going to come up with anything that cures what ails me. You know, now then, it's almost, nearly 20 till 6, and what that means is I'm going to pull some espresso and sit here and wait for the people you put in front of me to do whatever the hell they want to do, and without any notion of the alternatives that are elsewhere. That's all. And I'll kind of putter around and see if there's anything germane to the to what I've talked about. I think I did find something about management theory and how so many can get involved. But the problem is, if some of the adults in the room turn out to be the people I've mentioned to you, then the idea this move. You know, it still goes along with the thing about, you know, integrity and insight, one thing or another. And people try to come up with a standardized testing for integrity and whatever else. You know, I think they should sell all their pewter and go down to Cuba and live around, you know, that museum they have for Hemingway or something. That'd be a good idea. Well, among many others. All right. Have a good day, y'all. And I have not yet gotten to some of the, you know, personal subscriptions. I'll try to do that. I'm going one in particular I want to look at, and then try to rest. There's several waiting, and I'll get to them. And I thank you very much. And I wish you a very good day, particularly those who've joined into some of the discussions one way or another, although some seem rather constrained indeed, I think. But that's par. Bye for now.